Welcome to Clinical Data Talks, a podcast brought to you by CRS Cube. I'm your host, Sylvain Berthelot. Join me and industry experts as we discuss the latest trends impacting the world of clinical data. Our topic today, I'm sure you're aware of, even if you've been only a few months in the industry, as we're going to talk about real-world evidence. But what does it really mean? I'm very pleased to have an expert on the topic with me joining the podcast, Dr. Cristina Chang. She's been in the industry for many years and has been working in many of the top pharma companies. She's now Chief Medical Officer at HiRO, and she's joining us all the way from Taiwan. I've been looking forward to this discussion because, like many in the industry, I've heard talks about real-world evidence, but I don't know much about the topic. So I'm sure you will enlighten me. But before we start learning about your experience, would you be able to tell us what, in your words, real-world evidence means?
Thank you for the question. So, Sylvain, I think that real-world evidence is the true usage of the data that is collected to provide benefit to the patient, either, for example, to be part of a clinical trial as part of the design, or do we use the clinical data that is collected, for example, from claims, right, or electronic health record, and we will build the profile of this patient, and of this registry, we will learn a lot, right, about the patient, about the disease, and in those time, these real-world evidence will help us understand better the disease. Okay. So in those time, it helped us design better future studies. So that was how we utilized them in those time. And then the second type of usage were when we will use this data to support the post-marketing, right? Meaning that the drug will go through the clinical stage, will be approved, but we call it conditional approval, right? So the regulatory agency will just give us the approval, and these real-world data will be the supportive data that we will collect from the product after the product is approved, right? Yeah. So let's say that a product will be approved for a certain indication, but then after its launch, we have a study design that is submitted and also agreed with the US FDA, and we continue collecting the data, right, from day one that the product is on the market until, depending on how we agreed, right? For example, we collect the data for 1 year or 3 years, and then we analyze this data and we submit to the US FDA and saying, okay, I had done this clinical trial and this is the real world evidence and is quite consistent with what we had found in the phase 1 or phase 2 or even phase 3 in some time. So that was in the past. What we had seen evolving in the last few years is that we are evolving to utilize more of this data as part of the clinical trial. And also one of the very successful even first cases that came up in the market is the experience from Pfizer, where they already approved the product Ibrance for breast cancer, but for female, but they utilized the real world data to support the approval of the same product, but for male breast cancer. And why that was accepted is because male breast cancer is more rare,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the execution of this clinical trial in a way would be quite challenging, right?
Yeah.
So the engagement, right, that the Pfizer team has with the FDA concluded with designing this collection of the RWE to support the approval in that specific indication.
Yeah. That's amazing, that, because without the real world evidence, it would have taken years, or even
Yes,
maybe there wouldn't have been a justification to start a trial. So the
yes.
fact that they could expand the use to male is amazing. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize that in the past, real world evidence was very much used in real world, but now it's being used in clinical trials.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
And also for regulatory submissions.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about that, actually, um, how do you use real world data, and what kind of data can you use as part of a clinical trial?
It's an excellent question. I think that the data should fulfill some criteria, some
Yeah.
conditions, right?
Mhm.
It's not any data, right? So first, actually, to start being able to use the data, they should have in place a solid and rigorous database in place, right? For
Mhm.
example, one of the very famous database that is well recognized is the data come from the team from Flatiron in the US.
Okay.
So they had been able to build this very, very solid, right, data around any kind of diseases. And the condition actually is that you need to discuss this design and the purpose of using, right, this data with the FDA or any agency, right? That
Okay.
let's say, for example, the EMA or the PMA, MDA in Japan, right? And then the agency should review the design, right, and agree with you, the company, utilizing this RWE, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
with that, also, they will review the methodology that you are using, right, to avoid bias, right, and also
Mhm.
ensure that the data doesn't have confounding, right, factor.
Yeah.
So the sensitivity should be very well tested, and with that, then the regulatory agency is able to approve that, and also any claim, right? Because you do this RWE for a purpose, and the key purpose is that we want to use it to claim, right, something, right, after we get the report from this study. So all this should be pre-specified in the
Mhm.
protocol, right? It's not that you do the study and then you realize that, oh, this is quite interesting, right? And then you say,
Yeah.
oh, I do this ad hoc analysis, and then you submit to the FDA, and then you say, oh, I would like to utilize this data. No, you need to pre-specify how you are going to use this data and in
Yeah.
those conditions. So if I have to summarize, is that the data should be qualified. You should
Mhm.
have a data base that is rigorously uh, validated, right, controlled, and you should discuss, right, with the FDA about the design, and also you should ensure that any of the endpoints are pre-specified in the
Yeah.
protocol.
Okay. And I assume that then, so you do all this analysis of the data to make sure it's good enough, but then
Yes.
having this approval from the regulatory agency then
Mhm.
confirms that you can use it on your trial.
Yes.
Yeah. And do protocols have to include exactly which data points will be used from
Yes,
real world
yes,
evidence?
yes,
Wow,
yes.
okay. So it's
But
very
also you
precise.
can, yes. So, but that is the majority of it. But the good thing
Mm-hmm.
about science is that you can say there will be few things that I will find during the execution of the clinical trial, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, you have to mention it. You have to say,
Yeah,
during this study, I'm going to collect some specific biomarkers, right?
yeah,
And I'm going to validate if these biomarkers are good enough, right?
mm-hmm.
To validate and compare to a standard of care, either
Yeah,
testing or treatment, right? And again, you have to specify in the protocol that you want to do that.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, so a lot of planning up front. It's not
Yes.
just,
Yes.
oh, we get this data and we can do whatever we want.
You can collect those data, but again, you need to design, right, a protocol and
Yeah.
say, I'm planning to collect this data where, right, in which countries,
Mm-hmm.
which hospitals, right, which specific targeted patient, right?
Yeah,
And you design that protocol and then you say, I'm going to collect all this data and
okay.
wanted to discover what I had to have a question, right?
Yeah,
And after collecting those, it teach you, right? It's a learning process, right? Where
yeah.
at the end, when you analyze the data, you have is a report, right? Where you will say, oh, that was my finding.
Yeah,
And that again help you design the next either study or the next RWE
yeah.
design.
Okay. And in your experience, are there any specific clinical trials or programs that are more suitable for real-world evidence use?
Excellent question. I think that one of the example that really real world data can help a lot is rare diseases, right?
Okay.
Because as we know, let's say there are these diseases where the incidence is just 0 point something, right? 0
Mm-hmm.
0.1. In the whole world, maybe you just have a few hundred or few thousand of those patients, right?
Yeah,
In that occasion, rare diseases can really take advantage of RWE,
yeah.
right?
Is it because there's more data already available from patients than what you can collect in clinical trials?
Yeah, because as I said, the patient are already right there,
Yeah,
and the researcher are trying or had been collecting already data from this patient for
yeah,
many years, right?
yeah.
It's just they didn't design a structure way to analyze the data, right? The
Mm-hmm.
data is already there in the hospital into every patient medical record, right?
Yeah,
So the good thing of RWE nowadays is that, let's say, for example, the FDA or the EMA has very well established, right, guidance where they define how you should uh, think about utilizing this data,
mm-hmm.
right? So companies, right, or people in the hospital as a researcher, they will design this protocol to say, okay, this data had been seated here, right, for so many years, but we needed to see how we can utilize them, right,
Yeah,
for a good purpose, right? So actually, one of the definition of the FDA is saying RWE should be fit for purpose, for
okay,
a
yeah,
purpose, right? They are
mm-hmm.
designing that. Yes.
Yeah. So, as a follow-up question on that topic,
Mm-hmm.
as a company interested in developing a treatment for a specific rare disease,
Mhm.
would I be able to access real world evidence to build my strategy for a trial, for a treatment?
Yes.
Or, but can I do that outside of a clinical protocol, or do I have to have a clinical protocol first?
No, you should have, because
Mhm.
the data will be seated there. But as
Mhm.
I said earlier, the data might be incomplete,
Yeah, okay.
right? So you
Okay.
need to have a protocol to define very clearly and say and tell the hospitals or the centers, right, where that data is seated, to
Mhm.
say, I need you to collect this,
Yeah,
right?
okay. Yeah.
You have to define the criteria that you want to collect from those patients, because there are
Yeah.
many criteria. And also, actually, you needed to do a pre-assessment actually of the data that is available in the hospital first, to be able to design
The
the
protocol.
protocol,
Yeah.
right? Yes. So there is a pre preparation, right? That you need to do, check first on what is the data that is available in the hospital, right? That is one way. And the other way, as you said very clearly, very well before, is that there are companies, right, that design actually the collection of these data already, because they found this opportunity already, right, many
Yeah.
years ago. So they design already a very solid platform, right, in
Mhm.
place to say, I'm collecting this data, right? And then this data is collected every day for the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So the key about data is that you should do it in a structured way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And can you then submit um, a protocol or submit for review in any country, or are there specific countries that accept trials with real world evidence and others that don't?
Yeah, I think that the country's regulatory platform had been evolving a
Okay.
lot for the last few years. But I think that the agencies that had uh, more experience, right, doing this already for the last few years had been the US FDA, the
Mm-hmm.
EMA, in some cases also Japan
Yeah.
and PMDA also had been using the national database for some indication, and growing, for example, the KFDA, right, in Korea, and
Mm-hmm.
for example, China. The China NMPA also is trying to utilize that
Yeah.
uh, at the benefit of patient and also pharmaceutical companies.
So it's quite widespread then. It's good.
Yes, it's quite widespread, but I think that it is evolving, right? But I think that the some agencies has more experience using it, and
Mm-hmm.
some less, right? That is that they're more trying to do it in a case by case.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Are there, in your experience, are there any trials for which you wouldn't use real world evidence, where it wouldn't be suitable?
Yes. So I think that for the first in class product,
Okay.
right,
Mm-hmm.
that has not yet proven, right, yet how specifically the drug is going to behave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the cases that I think that wouldn't fit, right, to utilize in RWE. The
Mm-hmm.
order is also we are not quite able, right, to leverage there from one country to the other. What you can do is a hybrid, a combination of
Yeah.
having local data from one country, but plus uh, an MRCT. right? Plus a study, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot, for example, collect RWE from one country and say, I want to leverage that to another country, right? What is the rationale behind that? Yes, it's very hard to do that because RWE means that you are collecting the data from one specific country, right?
Mm-hmm.
How the drug had been utilized, right? How the patient had been treated for the last 5 years in one specific country, in one specific indication, right?
Mm-hmm.
So mostly the that data collected in that country will be quite different, right, from the other country because the practice will be different. But
Yeah.
I'm not saying that 100% impossible, right? If you are very lucky that after the analysis, right, you do see that, oh, the clinical practice in country A is very similar to country B, you can
Mm-hmm.
utilize that to be supportive, but you cannot say, I want to use these data to be leveraged, or I want these data to be used as waiver.
Okay. Wow, that's very, very specific. I didn't
Mhm.
realize that at all. That yeah, but I completely understand that. Yeah, the practice of medicine varies from country to country, so it
Mhm.
perfectly makes sense. Yeah. Whoa, very, very interesting indeed, and I've learned so much from you today. Thank you. I've got one last question for you, Christina, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
What's the best piece of advice that you've received that you apply in your daily work?
I think that the best advice that I got first, even in my past experience, but also that I will share with the audience, is that engage as early as possible, right? Engage with the regulatory agencies, right? About
Mhm.
what is your plan, right? What do you plan to do with RWE, right?
Yeah.
But also engage with other stakeholders, right? You remember that we said engage with companies, right, that are collecting this data, right?
Hmm.
For sure, they had learned a lot through the years, right? So talk to people, right, that are
Yeah.
working in RWE, share information as we do today, right? People will have best practices, right? They went through the journey, they learn things, right? The good and the bad, right? So one of the things, so in summary, is that engage early, talk to people that has experience, ensure that when you are designing a clinical trial, try to set up the endpoints that are in compliance
Yeah.
with the regulatory agency that you are submitted. You are planning to submit the data to, right? That
Hmm.
is very, very important. Also, ensure to bring as part of the team people that understand how to make the data rigorous, right? People that have experience in statistics, in methodology, on
Yeah.
how they're going to avoid the bias, right?
Hmm.
And lately also refer to the latest guideline, right? Because that guideline also are evolving, right? Are being updated, right? In different countries and in different agencies. So always refer to the latest, right, guideline, and even confirm, right, with people around you that have experience, and to say, oh, what piece of advice, right, can you give
Yeah.
me? Do you think that I should use the reference from the EMA or to the FDA, right? Because
Hmm.
every case is different, right? And then lastly, I think that also talk to the agency about a more comprehensive plan, meaning that it's not a one time, right? A one
Yeah.
time submission on, oh, this is just what I want to do today, right? Think on a plan that is more comprehensive and talk to the agency about what do you want to achieve with that data. I think that with those advices, I believe that the success will be quite high.
Nice. I love how you're advising people to collaborate, essentially, which is great. Cross-functional collaboration,
Yes.
collaboration with agencies is crucial for success early on. So yeah. Well, thank you very much, Cristina. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. And I'm sure everyone who's listening will be very thankful for you sharing your expertise and your experience. Thank you.
No, it's really my pleasure. And thank you, Sylvain, for giving me this opportunity. I think that learning from the journey of drug development is really a pleasure, an honor. So for me, it's really a pleasure for me to really share with the audience.
Well, I appreciate that. And thanks everyone for listening to us. You can find more episodes of Clinical Data Talks on our website.